Good evening, everybody. Assalamu alaikum from Calgary, and assalamu alaikum to my dear friend Rahmatullah in Vancouver. I think you're right now, right?
Yeah, it's Vancouver.
We're definitely miss you out here in Calgary. So hopefully you're having a good time over there.
Well, there's no snow, so I'm not complaining.
Well, we had a really good weather lately, so alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
Rahmatullah, I just want to start quickly tell you something. I think you are my kind of guy that I really like to talk to. And think, you represent something that's very important to me that I always look. And what I call it is the second generation Muslims Canadian. Uh, and what I mean by this is, since I met you almost 5 years ago, and you were very active in Calgary community volunteerism at that time, I think you really showed a great uh, manners in terms of volunteering, leaderships, engagement. I mean, on a personal level, you're doing amazing. On a community level, you're doing amazing, mashallah. So you are a really the for me, and that's why I really am so happy that we managed to get this live talk tonight, is because I think you represent for me the kind of, I would say, engaged young Muslims in Canada. So what do you say to that?
Well, first and foremost, thank you. Those are some very, very kind words, and I don't know if
Oh,
I'm
you are.
worth all of that, but I one of the biggest things I can say is I've always, looked at the importance of, you're right, the second generation and the generation coming up, because those are the kids that are going to be taking care of me when I'm old,
Right.
and
So true.
also everybody else, and they're going to be the building blocks of kind of our they're going to be the building blocks of our nation at the end of the day, right?
So
So
true. Yes.
if we don't invest in them, if we don't invest in kind of what they're going to
Right.
need in the future, what they're going to want to achieve in the future, then we're losing. We're losing our own battle here, right?
Absolutely.
So it's a very important factor.
And do you think if we want to start with that, if we keep saying if we don't, we should, and all this stuff. From your experience, uh, are we like, if you want to compare our community with the rest of all the other communities, like in the city here, do you think we are lacking behind, or we just like anybody else?
Oh no, we're lacking. I'm gonna call it exactly how it is. We're lacking. If you look at issues that our youth are facing that our elders or our adults don't even want to address, I mean, it's huge. Mental health issues, addiction issues, you name it, anything. And it's something that I see as, we all have the taboos of what we don't want to talk about at home or at school, but the reality is this is what our kids are getting into. And um, I don't like to put it under the misconception of, oh, it's because we're in the West. No,
Right.
it's because of the world we're in. With
Okay.
the rise of the internet, with the rise of societies developing, with the rise of everything, it does not matter where you are in this world. They are going to fall into these things, but the problem is our community chooses sometimes not to address it. I'm not saying they don't at all. I mean, I personally was involved in a lot of things talking about mental health, rehabilitation of youth, addiction problems, all this type of stuff, but we're lacking in terms of any other community you see out there.
Okay. And is there any justification why? Like, I mean, maybe if you can just give me a sec to say something in us, maybe from where it came from culturally, maybe from the Arabic background perspective, we don't like to talk about bad things or what's going wrong publicly. We always like to discuss it behind doors. Is that do you think is that one of the reason why we're not really involved, because we don't like to address issues that need to be addressed, and we're accustomed to uh, you know uh, uh, if there's something is not really happening, just it's better to keep it to yourself and don't talk publicly about it and try to solve it hush hush and all this stuff. Is that part of why we're not engaged, or you think we're not engaged because we don't know how to get engaged?
To be honest with you, it's a mix of both. And I'm going to say this because if you I'm going to use this example, pornography.
Right.
Okay? pornography, something that when in the 90s you had to go buy a magazine or a videotape, but now you can find it in a matter of seconds on the internet. But
Right.
is this a rising issue in our community? 100%. The youth and the children that are getting addicted to pornography, the numbers are unreal. I wrote an article about this in the Northwest Muslim magazine not too long ago, and it's something that we have to face. And this topic, along with drugs, the problem is we have this, not we, but there's a lot of parents or guardians or elderly or kind of, older generation that have this veil over their eyes where they think that, oh no, our children are perfect, they don't do anything bad, they can't fall into that, nothing like that, when in reality they do. And again, it's not because of, there's so many different aspects of how they could have got access to those things, whether
Right.
it be digitally, whether it be friendship groups, whether it be anything, right? But we have to be proactive now. The world
Right.
we are living in, if we are not proactive and we are reactive, we're only going to be behind. We're going to be 2 steps behind the kids, the youth, everybody out there, right? And, we're all taught growing up something like alcohol. Alcohol is haram, 100%. Does that mean we don't have alcohol addiction problems in the community? Absolutely not, right? We have them. So proactiveness is always better than reactiveness. So we have these things that the youth are seeing every single day. And, I talked about pornography, and it's something we are so desensitized to now because of the TikTok trends or because of the Instagram trends and all this kind of stuff, that even us as adults, we see things that we shouldn't see and we just say, oh, it's just normal. But if we are getting so desensitized to it, imagine what's happening to a developing mind.
Right. So
So, yep, go ahead.
no. I mean, I just want to highlight one thing when it comes to pornography per se. That it's not is it like a worldwide phenomenon in general, or that specifically the ratio is way higher in certain community than other communities, or just about the same everywhere? I mean,
So with
I'm curious why you picked on that topic, beside the addictions, beside all the other identity
so
crisis, I should say, and all the stuff.
yeah, no, it's and this is just one example, and we got a lot of time tonight, and it's one of the things I wanted to touch on. But if we look at pornography on its own, pornography has become an addiction problem amongst a
Right.
lot of Muslim youth. Okay,
Right.
if you look at it, it's worldwide. It's a
Right.
worldwide issue.
Right.
And like I said, the biggest thing that changed that was this right here, right? Our phones, our devices. It did not matter if you were sitting in a different country or whatever, but this is something that is growing. If you look at the application called TikTok,
Right.
okay, TikTok itself has been used by predators, has been used by people to spread, whatever they want to spread. Every single kid has it. Every single
Right.
kid, right? Every single kid wants to be a TikTok star now, right? So that was one thing. Now, addictions in general, whether it be pornography or whether it be drug addiction or
Right.
alcohol addiction, it is a problem. And it is something that we need to be proactive about than, you know, proactive instead of reactive. It comes back to what I originally said. If we say, oh, inshallah, in the future, like if God forbid, our kid becomes addicted to something, we'll address it then. No, we can't be like that. We have to start educating them about the dangers out there right now, especially
Okay.
children, especially youth. They need to know it's there, because if they don't know it's there, they don't know it's wrong, they don't know the magnitude of what could happen if they were to fall down a path of addiction, whether it be drug, pornography, alcohol, whatever, you name it. They need to
Right.
know that the dangers are there. And that
Right.
needs to come from a community level. Because if it
Okay.
doesn't come from a community level where we can tailor our programs to combat these issues using our faith, belief, and culture systems, then why would these kids listen to anybody else if it's not coming from within?
Absolutely. Let me ask you this question first, because I wanted from your perspective. I want to hear this from your perspective, Rahmatullah. You were born, raised in this country, and you are, as I said, you're second generation, right?
Yeah. So my parents immigrated when they were 20 years old, and I was born and raised in Calgary.
Oh, I see. Okay. So let me start with this. As a second generation Muslims, which is, and as I said, you are a perfect example of how really a community member should be engaged, involved, informed, and active and proactive. Do you think Muslims, second generation Muslims in Canada, do you think they have um, identity a problem between where they came from, where their folks came from, and the country they were like raised in, to adjust between the old country, the new country, or if you, for you guys, second generation, you already passed that. This is not the issue, or you think there's some kind of residue of the previous programming of your folks in you still, and you're struggling with it as a community member.
So there's two aspects to this question. If you look at my generation,
Right,
we had and I'm gonna say this, we had the luxury of living in a pre-September 11th world.
okay,
Okay. When I grew up in Calgary, in those years before that horrible event happened, I
right,
went to a school. We did not even think about religion, race, or anything. I was a Muslim. Nobody cared.
right,
I was free to do what I like. Unfortunately, that event hit in the world, and that changed a lot of things for our people, right?
right,
Moving forward now, and as our populations have grown, as you know, media coverage in negative ways has grown, all this kind of stuff, people are now coming and they're staying in their pockets of cultural identity, whether it be with their specific culture or whether it be with their specific religion. And the
right.
integration is not as easy as it was when I was a child. Is this a bad thing? Not necessarily. But moving forward now, and you asked, is it hard for our youth to maintain their identity? Yes and no. No, because we live in Canada, which is a beautiful country for, as we all learned in social studies, being a cultural mosaic. Okay?
Right.
Canada promotes the idea that we can hang on to our belief systems, culture systems, and still be Canadian. And, CBC and me talked about this once. I'm Muslim, I'm Canadian, and I see no problem with being the two side by side.
Right.
However, what we are seeing now with the youth, and from the youth I have directly worked with, is that our community is putting less emphasis on this is how we can survive, maintain our cultural identity, our religious identity here in our country. And it's putting more emphasis on, okay, this is what you can and cannot do. And the kids are literally coming to me and saying, we don't want to be Muslim anymore because it's too hard to practice.
Oh,
And I'm like,
wow.
what do you mean? And kids have literally told me this. Kids have told me this to my face. We don't want to be Muslim anymore. We don't want to be a part of this religion. We don't want to become religious because it's too hard to practice. And I'm like, where are you coming about this? And I watch. I've been a little quiet in the last little while because I've had a lot of other things going on in my life. But at the end of the day, when I look on online threads and when I look on everything, my new kind of quote, you could say, is if our community spent the same amount of time as they spend researching somebody's the via halal certification into talking to our youth and talking to them about real issues, we'd be 100 steps ahead of where we are. And
That's important.
where I'm going with this is we spend so much time on the little details with the kids that they think it's too hard. When in reality, there was a group of us before I left Calgary, and we all looked at each other and we're like, what are the goals of when we have children? And we all looked at each other that, inshallah, they'll pray. And then we'll
Yeah.
go up from there.
So
Right?
true.
So is it hard for the kids to maintain it? Yeah. Is it solely because of what our community is doing? No, it's coinciding with what's going on in the world. But what we have to do from the community level is we have to enforce that it's not hard to be Muslim and Canadian at the same time. Heck, I used to drive down the streets of Calgary with no doors on my Jeep and my cowboy boots out the side, but I
Yeah,
was
I
still
remember.
a
Yeah.
Muslim, right? So, and this is what I used to try and emphasize with the kids I worked with was you can still be a Muslim practicing in all aspects and still enjoy every part of this country that falls within our Sharia law. Do you see where I'm coming from?
Absolutely. I mean, and not only this, I think even the laws of the land, it made it so easy for us just to be who we are and to be an active, an active community member with and keep preserving our heritage and our traditions and our faith. But still, it's getting harder and harder and harder, as you said, worldwide. And literally understand that. But my point is the community doing? I don't want to say doing enough. what exactly the community is not doing collectively, so these youth are, let's say, facing the addictions, the gang life, the I mean all kind of addictions and Islamophobes and discriminations, and also, as I said, the identity crisis, in my opinion. So what's the community is not doing beside the parents, like the father and the mother side? I mean,
First and
we have mosque everywhere, mashallah. I mean, we have everywhere
yeah.
you go, there's a mosque, or I should say, empty mosque.
Well, now, and this comes back to, when we used to run the programs at the Northwest Youth Center, and, I used to go for prayer every once in a while, and there used to be like, what, 10 people? 10 people praying, right? There was not that many youth and there, not that many adults. And
Right,
so we had this question that was faced upon us: how do we bring the youth back into the masjids, right?
right,
And we had taken a very interesting approach to that, where we said, let's run programs in the masjids that the youth like doing. And everybody was like, well, what do you mean? We used to have a games night. We used to have a games night of, we had a couple PlayStations plugged into the TVs, have them play their PlayStation, still have a little bit of talk about religion, 20 minutes, let them play for an hour and a half, right? So we have to intrigue these kids with what they're interested in, right?
right.
Obviously, if it's something haram, we can't do that in a masjid, right? Right? But we have to bring them in. We have to loop them in with the things that they're being interested in. Okay, so what does our community need to do? First and foremost, with addiction problems and stuff like that, we need to be proactive. We need to inform them that of the dangers that are out there. There need to be more programs, everything. One of the things I took away from the public, like, I never went to Islamic school. I went to the public school system. To this
Right.
day, what I remember is the grade 9 party program. I don't know if they still do it. The grade 9 party program, where they took us in a bus, they took us to the Foothills Hospital, and they taught us the dangers of drinking and driving, and they made us talk to trauma patients. Why couldn't we do that at a community level? If you
Right.
ask 99%, not 99%, but if you ask the majority of, parents and guardians out there who say, oh, well, our kids will never do that anyway. But how do you know that?
How do you know that? Yes.
How do you know that, right? Like, the kids, when we used to go with the kids at school, 99% of the Canadian parents that I knew of, my friends, said, oh, well, my kid will never drink and drive anyway. But unfortunately, that's not the case, right? So we
Right.
have to be proactive. The second thing I will say that we have to do is, and I don't know how it is in Calgary right now with regards to youth programs and whatnot, but before this first stage, or before this last stage of lockdowns here in BC, there was the opportunity for groups and whatnot to meet underneath the COVID atmosphere, like the COVID restrictions. Okay, we had
Mhm.
set guidelines. The only community, and I'll say this over and over again, the only community in this city of Vancouver that did not have programs running was the Muslim community. I had to take the kids with me to youth programs run by everybody else except our own people. And you know what they used to tell me? Oh, well, COVID. And I'm like, but there's rules in place to let us run programs with certain things. Don't be lazy.
So
Use the
true.
rules to run your programs again. Everybody else is doing it, whether it be the
So true.
Christian group, whether it be the agnostic group, whether it be the community. They're doing it. So why can't we? So again, coming from what do we need to do? Proactiveness, and there is never enough programs that we can run that youth can get involved in. Run outreach programs. This is something that I used to do personally. I used to take a group of kids, whether it be the holiday season, whether it be not be the holiday season. We used to go door to door and give chocolates. Why?
Right.
Islam teaches us to be good neighbors. What's the harm in taking the kids to reach out to people? One, this teaches kids that they have to integrate with their neighbors and with the people around them. Two, it teaches the neighbors, who may be these, older generation, who are just like those crazy Muslims. And all of a sudden somebody's knocking their door, hey, we just wanted to give you guys some chocolate. We're from the place down the street, or we're your neighbors down here. It starts a conversation, right? So
Absolutely.
those are the things that we have to do.
So, Rahmatullah, if I want to ask you this, like back in your generation, so let's say you grew up with, let's say, 50 people, 50
Mhm.
Muslims, youth, your age. So I'm just giving like a number, percentage wise. So from
Yep.
this number that you know, if I want to say percentage wise, how many you think from those people that you grew up with, they feel they are connected and engaged in their Muslim community after being an adult and all stuff from your experience? And we're just trying to just come up with
So if you
just an
look at the
example.
people, if you look at the people that I went to school with, that I was around, first and foremost, so everybody knows, when I went to grade school, I was the only Pakistani in the school, and I was the only Muslim in the school
Oh,
for for 10 years. So
oh,
from kindergarten, or actually, sorry, kindergarten, I had one friend. He was Pakistani Muslim, and then he moved to Toronto. Then from grade 1 to grade 9, I was the only one. Okay, and that was in the northwest, or in the north, kind of Diefenbaker and Sir Johnny MacDonald and all those places. Diefenbaker was a
right,
little different because it was high school, so a lot of feeder schools came in. But when I was at Sir Johnny MacDonald and when I was at Alex Monroe Elementary, there's one or two of us, and that was it.
right.
Okay, but if you look at the people that I'm friends with, the people who are my age, a year or two younger, a year or two older, or even 5 years back and forth, I would say about kind of 50 to 80% of them, so 75%, are still quite connected with their religion and quite connected with their community.
Right.
The biggest thing that we saw growing up, and the biggest thing that is actually pushing the youth away now, is politics. And
Politics
again,
of politics
of the
of the community or politics of the country.
community.
Ouch! What? I didn't hear that. Okay, I didn't have buttons to mute that. So did you just say? Did you just say the politics of the community was one of the main factor for some people just to shy away from
I
their
knew
community?
I knew parents when I was teaching kids, the kids of those, or the parents of those very same kids, who at one point would tell their children to stay away from our centers because the politics has gotten so bad.
Ooh.
And no,
Okay.
and listen, I like to call it how it is, and
Yeah,
I'm
me
not
too. I
making
mean,
this stuff up, right?
yeah.
And it's no secret that we've had our issues, but at the end of the day, if the kids now are being, pushed into this of we don't want to deal with this, and a big example of this was even groups at certain institutional education places in our city where they were facing politics similar to what our greater community was facing, and we'd all stay away from them.
So
So
true.
it comes down to the biggest thing that we tried to push before I left the city: one ummah. It doesn't matter what we believe. It doesn't matter if I wipe my socks for my wudu or I take them off. It doesn't matter if I, believe in this school of thought or that school of thought. At the end of the day, it is our job now. It is our generation's job to preach we need unity so that the kids start to realize, okay, it's not just craziness, right? It's something that we can do. And it's happening. The talks are happening in people my age, in their 30s, who are saying, you know what, we need to start stepping up. We're educated individuals, we're experienced individuals. We need to start stepping up and taking those roles in the community so that we can, one, relate to the youth, and two, so that we can start to make change. And
True.
this does not mean that we disregard every elder in our group. No, I'm never saying that. But what I'm saying is, just like any business organization, just like any nonprofit organization, there has to be dialogue, there has to be logic, and there has to be rules, regulations, everything. And our generation now, the older generation, mashallah, if you look at Calgary's older generation and what they set up in our city, building the masjids, everything, they did a wonderful job. They
True.
did amazing work. We all as human beings will get lost in these politics and whatever. That's shaitan playing with us, right? But at the end of the day, we need to start taking over. We need to start relating to the youth, and we need to say, hey, listen, it's not just you guys who are wondering what's going on. We are too, and let's start taking a step forward. The community is all of our responsibilities.
So true.
And this is the one thing sometimes we say we don't have time, but we should always have time.
And we have to make time for this. So, Rahmatullah, I mean, you really, I want to clarify this. This community politics that I agree with you. I agree with you totally. It's one of the major reason for a lot of people to shy away from our faith institutions and community centers and all this stuff. because of this so-called politics of the communities. Let's go dig a little bit into it. These politics, is it related to uh, first generation bringing their package with them here, or unrelated to the first generation mentality? And what I mean by this, and let me just and just let me throw it on you, and hopefully I'm wrong. Where we came from, individualism is so important. Where we came from, we believe in so-called like a leaderhead. We
Mhm.
believe in sheikh. We believe in mukhtar. We believe in the head of the group, ahead of the tribe. So you have that mentality of one person always tried to rule the people around him. Where we here in the West, in Canada, we are really we learn about how to be to live in democratic societies, and how the decision is making is like really a collective decision. It's not a personal decisions. Do you see a struggle between the old folks and the one who born here on the issues of how to manage the community and how to run our facilities and our schools and centers?
You brought up a really good topic talking about the first generation and the baggage they are bringing from back home. I'm going to talk about one thing first and foremost. The biggest problem that we had with the first generation was them bringing the cultural baggage from home of who is better than who.
Right.
I'm going to call it straight how it is. You're talking to the guy who was told by multiple people that I will never be able to be as good of a Muslim as an Arab because Arabic is not my first language.
Wow.
And I can tell you, I've been told that more than once. You were talking to the guy who has dealt with youth members who have come to him and said, me and this person want to get married, but we can't because we're not from the right culture.
Right.
So if you want to talk about baggage from back home, yeah, 100%. 100% we're talking that there's an issue there. I mean, I've been told to my face more than once that you don't speak Arabic, you're not the same level Muslim as us. So
Well, okay, you were told by who? By like, I'm so sorry. Let's because this is a very sensitive and plus very important topic. By another peers of yours, another schoolmate, or another, let's say, sheikh or imam. It's make a huge difference.
Imam in the city, I've
And
been
this,
told that.
well, I mean, definitely this probably this. I don't want to say he represent himself only, but let's agree. Let's call the spade a spade. There's some people might think this way, and yes, we're not generalizing this. And honestly, I
Listen,
think this is an issue that we need to talk about. We need to address it. So
it
he
is.
told you that sheikh is you can be as good as a Muslim as I am because you don't speak Arabic.
Mhm. And because I'm the wrong
Simple as
skin
that.
color. As simple as that. And I've been told, Sam, I've been told this by multiple people in our community. And you can't, like, it's something that I hold very close to me because at the end of the day, we're not to judge who is a better Muslim and who is not. It wasn't just one person, Sam. And it wasn't just me, it was a whole group of people. I can tell you on my fingertips, I can tell you, I'm not going to say names, but at least 5 people that I know close to me have been told the same thing. Or,
Okay.
we're from this country, you're from this country. Heck, we have this whole movement going forward about Black Lives Matter. And I will never forget, God bless him, Sheikh Fayyad gave a khutbah once, and I held this statement very close. All of us talk about how we should respect the memory and what Bilal did in the time of the Prophet, peace be upon him. But if somebody brought home somebody that looked like Bilal today, we would not let them get married to our daughters. And I will
Okay.
never forget that khutbah. And it's these type of talk, it's these type of internal issues that we have that are coming from the first generation that we have to combat. Islam came to eliminate racism.
True.
And this is one thing from now you talked about moving to the next step. You talked about, the whole idea of a leader head, of a leader saying to everything, all that kind of stuff. But we're missing one important topic of shura, the group discussion, the group talks. That's very important in our faith, right? And
So
we need to move more towards it. And this is what the youth hold important because they want to have logic. They want to know why. They want to know why something is haram, why we should stop doing this. all this kind of stuff. They don't just want to be told this is what you do and that's it. The only person or the only power that can tell us that is Allah. We don't drink khamar, that's it. Khalas, that's it. But still, even that, there's reasoning behind it, right? Allah never left us hanging. So we need to have this interaction with our people, with our younger generation and everything, where it is something collective. It is something with logic and reasoning, not just this is what so-and-so said so. That's it.
So, Rahmatullah, I mean, thanks for bringing that an issue that I think it's really important. I've been talking about it for, let's say, last 2 years, and everybody just feel like they don't want to talk about it, and cause like I'm causing fitna between different part of the Muslim community, which is not. But I do really acknowledge there's some form of racism exists among the among the community in general. And I'm not here to say if it exists or not. I think it's already there, and you're just a living example of what you just said. But for the same topic of the first generation, don't you think also from within your own community, which is, let's say, in this case, Pakistani community or my community, the Arabic community, is it within the same Pakistani community you have also these kind of toxic ideas and racism as well?
Oh, yeah. Look at the biggest thing. Lots of people who are from Lahore in Pakistan will look at people who are originally from Karachi in Pakistan differently.
And
lots of people who are from Kashmir or from, well, not even Kashmir. Look at this. Pakistanis and Bangladeshis, how they will talk to each other. They will talk to each other with disrespect. The Pakistani people, I have witnessed them treat the Bengali people like they're nothing. Why? Because of something that happened years ago. Indians and Pakistanis, we're still carrying the war from back then. Why? We're in Canada now, guys. Right?
So true.
Lebanese, same thing. Palestinian, well, not Palestine. I don't have that much experience in the Palestinian community, but I'm just saying, Lebanese, same thing. Different villages. Different villages will fight, right? So
different villages will fight, for sure.
Yeah, 100%. So what does it exist within the internal communities? Pakistani, Middle Eastern, yeah, 100%. 100% it does. Sudanese and Arabs from the Gulf, 100%, same thing. Right? And these are
Somali
things
community, Somali community, South Sudanese communities.
Yeah. So these are topics that happen within us. Is there isolated incidents? No. The sad part is we used to hear these stories on repeat with the kids. Oh, well, and when we would hear it come out of, their mouths in terms of the racist slurs that have just, been slipped in, we're just like, what are you saying? Just like you wouldn't use the quote N-word to describe somebody who is African American, there are different words within our own cultures where we use to describe people from different tribes.
So true. Yeah, absolutely. Totally.
But that's Canada, right? Like we need to eliminate this here.
Okay. So see, it sounds to me like second generation need to educate first generation now.
We do. We do. At the end of the day, we do. But sometimes it's like running into a wall, right? It's like throwing stones at a wall that will never crack the wall. But the whole idea is that, we're living in a beautiful time for, this. If we look at even the movement of Black Lives Matter, it raised a big spark of, okay, yes, we raised a big topic about people who are being abused because of the color of their skin. But what are we doing from within our communities? Everybody was so quick to jump on the movement, which I love. There is nothing more than I love for that. But what I'm saying is, let's start with addressing the issue from within. Before you go to join somebody else's movement, start from addressing it from within our community. How do we do that? And so that's the solution, please. I love it. Let's educate.
Do you know who is that? I'm here. You know I'm here, right?
Yes.
Okay. Salam alaikum. I'm here. Thanks for the good question. So here you go.
Suggest our solution.
Yes.
Start teaching our youth using khutbahs, using youth programs, using outreach programs, the importance of equality from within our own community. There is so many examples from the Prophet's time and after about these battles that were faced and how they were addressed and how they were dealt with. Learn from our own past. Learn from our own past. make them learn that everybody is equal. And heck, God bless my elementary school teachers. I remember it to this day, how much they used to enforce that, right? About, guys, it doesn't matter if he's from China or he's from Pakistan, but you guys are Canadians now. Right. And using the Canadian identity is where we could achieve this. Teach them that being Canadian means you can hang on to your roots, but you're all Canadian. The same way being a Muslim means that you can hang on to your culture as long as it falls within our rules and be a Muslim. That was our overarching banner at one point. Somebody asked me what nationality it is I am, and for a long time I used to say I'm a Muslim, and they're like, well, no, we mean culturally. I'm like, oh, I'm Pakistani Canadian. But they're like, what nationality are you? I'm a Muslim, and I'm proud of it, right? Because our faith became its own identity, saying that you could maintain, and look, there's a good example of this, and everybody knows, from my Facebook and my Instagram and everything, how much I love food. And Islam, like, mashallah, if you look at the different cuisines within our faith of the Muslim countries, and we can all come together on that, right? So if we can all break bread and share a meal together, let's start teaching our youth about the importance of not looking at somebody else within our own communities first differently, and then use that same logic to teach them about the outside world.
So true. So another word is really, it's a responsibility of the leaders and the influencers of this community is to bring what really bring us together. It's talk about the stuff that bring us together. Yes. Even to the point of just the food, a part of it. This is despite the religion, the practices, the Quran, the khutbah, the hadith, and all that stuff, which is we have so much in common. And really thanks for being so direct and transparent in your conversation about how important, when we say we are a Muslims and we are a Muslims, as you said, this is, we're all proud of to belong to this great faith. But unless we acknowledge the diseases that we have, and unless we start talking about it to find solutions for it, I think we're just going to keep building on a very shaky ground. Talking about we have a masjid, but when you go to the masjid, all what you find is one nationality here, one nationality the other place. This is a Arabi mosque, this is a Pakistani mosque, and whatnot. Even if you go, as you said, deeper into within the same culture, you're gonna find different countrymen grouping together, which is nothing wrong with that. Really, nothing wrong with I'm Syrian, just to hang with the Syrians, or I'm Lebanese, hang with Lebanese. This is nothing wrong whatsoever.
No, there isn't.
When we say, and this is what we bring into the youth part, because you said the youth want to understand. You cannot say, we're Muslims, okay, and then when you see the practice, it's unrelated to Islam. It's just like I'm preaching honesty, and I'm just like doing completely the opposite. I'm saying to my let's say youth or my son, we are Muslims, we are one nation, and I go, don't talk to this guy, he's Arabs. Don't talk to this guy, he's Pakistani. This, that, especially when it comes to marriage, and that's where this is where you really sense it, how deep and serious this issue is. Yeah. I know a few of my friends say, yeah, my friend's daughter got married, but she got married to a Muslim from that country. Okay, so listen, you can see.
I mean, lots of people know, but I mean, I got married to a Yemeni, and it was, I don't speak Arabic. I'd never, been to Yemen or been to the Gulf or anything like that. But heck, I ended up getting married in Yemen, and it was a time of my life. And the best part I had over there was the food, right? On a funny note. But I'm just saying, these are the type of things. You said something that was really important. Integrating underneath the Canadian banner, or kind of amalgamating underneath the Canadian banner, is important, but at the same time, no, we can't lose where we came from. And coordinating or hanging out with our own community, our own kind, I don't want to use that word lightly, but our own, culturally same people is important, because we got to maintain our roots, right? At the end of the day, we got to find our tie back. We got to find, if you're Pakistani, you're Pakistani. Heck, you're going to want to sit with your friends
Yeah,
and talk
exactly.
talk about cricket, right? That's a big thing with us, right? Or, if it's, so yes, you have to have that. But at the same time, we need to find balance. We need to find balance of remembering where we came from, our roots. I've never been to Pakistan because life hasn't enabled us to go back, but it's still something that I want to do. I still
Right.
want to go see the streets that my mom and dad used to roam on, where they met, all that kind of stuff. It's very important to me, right?
Yeah.
And at the same time, when people ask me, I say with pride, yeah, I came from a Pakistani background, 100%. Do I speak the language? Unfortunately not, right? But it's something that's still important to me. And it's something that, I will always hold. I know, if I look at even anybody I know. So yes, you have to maintain where you came from. You have to maintain those roots, but at the same time, we need to find a balance.
You need to find a balance, and you need to find the proper language that's going to bring people together. Because
Mhm.
honestly, I do. When we talk about youth, if you don't bring a healthy, if you don't build the field of dreams for them, they will not come. They will not show up. So don't expect them just they're going to do it on their own, just because you said so. If you don't, yeah, as I said, you start with the first generation, where I really literally, and I don't want to sound too negative today, but I really think a lot of work need to be done on the first generations, as much or maybe a greater with the second generation, because I can see the influence of Canadian culture on you, the way you talk, the way you think. You got married to a Yemeni wife, and vice versa. So I really think under the banner of Canadianism, we're able to act as one community, and technically, or we supposed to be like this even as a Muslim, not regardless, right? But
And that's what I was going to say. Yeah.
the question is, well, there's a good question by Musab. I want to pass that question to you. But again, what we need to do to minimize the influence of first generations, let's say, I don't want to, first generation, I would say crisis, because first generation, like myself, we're torn between two culture, whether we like it or not.
Yes.
You
Yes.
know,
That's true. It's true. It's very true. Back home will
and
always
I
be
don't think
back
in
home.
your case, I don't think you have the same struggle like I do for myself. So I really think this package, it's not only harming us only, but really the second generation and beyond is paying the price. And when you say the community policy playing a major role to push people away, I literally understand that. Even how we talk to the kids, how we expect the kids to behave, that's all playing a role to push people, push kids away. So, and that's what I said is there's a lots of work need to be done, but because we're not adult, we always see the problems outside. We
Mhm.
see it in the country, we see it in society, we see it in the kids themselves, but we never really said, you know what, hold on, what exactly I'm doing myself to contribute to create that
I,
so-called unhealthy environment for the kids.
I think the other thing, Sam, is to consider, and lots of the viewers and lots of that I helped co-found an organization called the Own It Institute of Canada, and we had an event that runs annually. I'm hoping with COVID, something can happen this year, even though I'm not even there. We used to run something called Meet a Professional Night.
Okay.
Okay, Meet a Professional Night was tailored towards introducing our own community and people from outside of our community to Muslim professionals from every aspect of life. Now, we use the word professional not just for somebody who's a doctor, a lawyer, an accountant, but rather somebody who is a profession in their field, whether it be a chef, a makeup artist, a hairdresser, whatever it is. And the whole idea that we had when me and the board thought of this was we thought about our community first, our youth first. We said, you know, let's think about all the questions we've been asked of what do we want to be when we grow up. And I remember a couple years ago when Mahdi was still in the city, he brought me into Calgary Islamic School to talk at Career Day about being an accountant. the wonderful world of accounting. You know, CPA stands for can't properly add, right? It's what we do, right? But kids were putting up their hands going, well, isn't it haram to be an accountant or haram to be a lawyer or whatever it is?
Oh,
And
a kid would say that.
oh yeah, right? And we said, okay, after this, sorry, my cat is about to go on the computer. Um, after this, we said, you know what we need to do? We need to get our people together and show them that yes, you can one, live the life, be a crazy professional in whatever field you know, besides the minor handful that we can't Islamically do,
Right.
you can live the life, be successful, and still be a practicing Muslim. And I remember there was myself, there was a come up, like there was lawyers, there was doctors, there was cooks, there was everything. And we gathered to say we still maintained our identity, we still maintain our boundaries, but we're living the life as a lawyer, or we're living the life as an accountant, or I'm a hairstylist, or this or that. And this sparked what we saw was a whole new kind of eye-opening experience for young people in our community, because people would leave and be like, holy crap, I can become an RCMP officer and still have the opportunity to pray my 5 times prayer. Yeah. Right? But it's these type of questions that, you know, I remember once somebody told me we were leaving a party, like a community-based party, not a crazy Canadian party, but we were leaving like a community-based get-together. It was in Ramadan, and they told me, they're like, you will not believe what we heard on the other side of the curtain, because you know usually we sit in groups or we sit in genders, and I'm like, what? Tell me. They're like, somebody was just like, that guy Rahamatullah, you know, he's gonna really have to answer to Allah because he's an accountant, and being an accountant is haram. And I was like, what? I was like, half the people I know are accountants. Heck, majority of the Rahmatullah families are accountants, right? So it was just like, so, but it's kind of the lack of knowledge from the first generation, which leads them to make assumptions, and we all make assumptions, first generation, second generation, or eighth generation. The lack of knowledge makes us make assumptions, which make us make statements that aren't true. And these type of statements carry lots of weight when they're coming with somebody with a gray beard,
Absolutely.
right?
Rahmatullah, mashallah. My mind is racing with so many questions I have in mind, but I think really there's no way we can squeeze all that in one hour. But I really, so anyway, I'm gonna pass the floor to a question with Musab. That's a question for you, if you don't mind changing the topic a little bit.
Yeah, 100%.
Sorry, here you go. Where's the questions? I have a serious question. Here you go.
Okay.
I have a question. Here you go. That's from our friend Masab. I think you know Masab.
Yeah, I do very well. He's a good
How
friend
are
of
we
mine.
going to prevent drugs and violence with youth in the Muslim community?
So this question is really good, and there's a comment that just came in saying our Muslim children need good, strong role models. This is going to tie into what I'm going to say. Just as how the school system when I was growing up combated drugs, violence, and gang violence, where they would bring in, let's use gang violence as our topic for the example here. They brought in ex-gang members who had been reformed either by going to jail or who had just, quote, seen the light. And they talked to us about what gang life was really about, right? And I personally know people in our community who have gone down that path and reformed themselves, subhanAllah, and turned back to Allah, and heck, become better practicing Muslims than I have, or reverts who have done that. And
Right.
these type of events is what we need to hold with our community. I talked in the beginning about pornography and drug addiction and tackling the addiction proactively. We need to do this with violence too. We need to do this with gang violence too. We need to bring these kids in, make them talk about, you know, okay, have you been approached for violence? Have you been approached for drugs? Have you been approached for this? And then we need to make them talk to people who have done these things, who have, you
Right.
know, unfortunately fallen into these traps. I met somebody when I first moved to Vancouver. He's about 45 years old. He, as far as I know, he lost his family and lost his job and lost his whole well-being because of his alcohol addiction. But he reformed himself. He went and got treatment. He made himself, and he talks very openly about it. He was like, I was the cause of my own downfall. Alhamdulillah, now, you know, I turned back to my faith, I turned back to everything, and I'm here, and I can only hope that I can repair what I did before. So, you know, Mus'hab, he asks the question, what do we do? Proactive programs. Make them talk to not only people who have done it from outside of our community, find the ones who have done it within our community. Yes, our religion teaches us, you know, don't talk about somebody's past, but there are people who are willing to talk about it for the benefit of the future.
Absolutely. Rahmatullah, I mean, um, as I said, there's gazillion questions in mind. But at least I want to ask you this question for you as a community member. Do you
Mhm.
think do you think the method and the approaches used uh, by sheikhs, imams, of, in general, do you think it's suitable or it's up to speed to where the community is, or you think, and this is what I think myself, it's like lacking behind. I think they use the same teaching that, I don't want to say passe, but it's not really attracting the youth into the center.
So
Do you agree on
it,
that? This is a very, I don't want to get myself in trouble, but
no, no, no,
do
no,
you think,
Sam, this is a really important question. I understand exactly where you're going with this, and
okay,
I can say from my not relations, with my experience here in Vancouver for the last year and a bit, and
yes,
with my experience in Calgary, and also my hands-on experience with building programs in Calgary, we got a lot of good resources in Calgary for imams and sheikhs who can really relate to kids. We got amazing resources. We have, you know, 90% of all the khutbahs I went for in Calgary related to real world today issues, which is what Jummah is about. It's about looking at what our community is facing and tying it back to our wonderful faith, right?
right,
So Calgary has amazing leaders who do that. I'm not going to name names because I'm going to get in trouble for forgetting people,
yeah,
because,
so
you
true.
know, there's so many good ones there. And, you know, we talked about one other thing. If I can't remember what year it was, Sam, I remember the UFC fight was on, and the new youth center, the Al Kaf Youth Center, hosted the UFC for all the youth to come watch. This is a perfect
Absolutely,
example of
so
what we
true.
need. Because
So
heck,
true.
every kid was wanting to get, so instead of going to a bar, instead of going to a sports club, instead of going to somebody's house, they ended up in the youth center funded and run by the masjid to watch what they all wanted to watch, a fight.
What a
And this
nice
was a
idea.
perfect example. And Calgary's leaders, I know them, I know lots of them personally. Mashallah, mashallah, mashallah. They do an amazing job at relating to our youth.
Great. So really, I mean, we have only 8 minutes left, and I'm just gonna try to summarize the very important point. Maybe I'll post them later. Is we need? I mean, okay. You want to summarize it because I don't want to just create trouble for myself, but I want to
Don't,
highlight the importance of first generations
yeah.
uh, challenge, because whether we like it or not, honestly, I think 80% of the existing problems political like community problems we're having, it's related to the mentality of the first generation, not the second generation. The
Heck,
second
we all
generation
faced
have
it.
two choices: whether they'll play along or they move away. And unfortunately, quite a few of them, they said, you know what, I'm out of this, I have better things to do.
And you know, there's people in my immediate circle who said that I'm not dealing with this politics. I'm gone. I'll show up to the masjid to pray. I'm not getting involved in this. It's our obligation to get involved. It's not easy to get involved. Now, if we want to summarize, you know, let's first and foremost, we have a generation that is growing fast and being influenced by everybody but our own people, which is a problem.
Right.
Okay. At this point, if we do not take the step forward to one, what happened in the past back home happened in the past. That was an old life. That was a life before technology. That was a life before integration into a whole new culture. That was a life before intermingling with people of hundreds of different backgrounds,
Yeah,
right?
but Rahmatullah, it's the responsibility of the second
Yes.
generation to
Yes.
be vocal and say,
Yes.
excuse me, enough, stop right
Yes.
here.
Yes. It is
Just
our
when you see the
responsibility.
harm, you can't shy away from it. Say, you know what, it's not my problem. I'm done with that. I'm gone. Because saying this, you are creating the next layer of a problems with the many generations to come. I really
Sam,
feel personally,
it's
second
our
generation
generation.
like yourself need to move forward and take their spot under the spotlight.
It is our generation's responsibility to be the role models for the youth of the future. And that means we have to get our A game together. We need to combat the first generation and get rid of the issues we have. We need to educate ourselves both worldly and religiously. And we need to start putting forward role models from within us to show people of the younger generation what exactly our faith is about, what exactly we can achieve. Because if we don't do it, Sam, nobody else will. The elder
Exactly.
generation, the first generation, they're getting old. They have to be taken care of. They need to enjoy the golden years of their life now. And it's our responsibility to take over.
So true. And I mean, and I would like to just revisit the issues of our religious leaders, sheikh, imams, scholars, qari, whatever, whomever have that influence on people religiously. The language, the current language, we need to adopt an attractive way of bringing people in, because it doesn't make sense when I bring a young fella to the mosque or to the center, and all what they hear is a screaming coming out of the microphone. Why you scream? I mean, goodness, this screaming back in the days of khutbah, there was no microphone, so everybody has to scream so they can hear you. But now they have a microphone. No need to scream. No need to use that language. Just need to no need to use that language that's gonna just turn people away. Whether we like it or not, we have to make it inviting environment. We have to create it. We have to create an inviting environment to the youth, whether we like it or not. That's a reality, because if you don't do it that way, the outside environment will be much influence on them, and they're gonna drift. No
And
doubt.
Sam, before we end here, there's one comment down there that I saw where generation gap. Youth can't frankly speak due to respect. If you could make that one show up, this is huge. And we are all trained, and this is very important. I'm not saying that we don't respect our elders and our people around us, but this is something that's very important. Heck, me at 30 years old talking to somebody who's at 60 years old, they look at me like I'm a kid, which in their eyes I could be their child, right? But at the end of the day, just as we combat issues with family members from a medical point of view of, when they're having psychological problems, we create what's called a safe zone where each party can say whatever they want and there's no backlash. This is
Right.
the same mentality we have to take in our communities. The younger generation, whether they be 30 or whether they be 18, have something to say, and it's usually valid if they're willing to speak up. And it's up to us at 30 years old talking to a 16-year-old, and at 60 years old talking to a 30 or even a 16-year-old to remember that there's something behind that, and we have to encourage people to speak up in a respectful manner.
Oh wow! Honestly, thanks, Amir, for this questions. An awesome answer. Thanks for highlighting that questions. I have so many questions here, but I can't really bring them all. I feel like I'm running a little bit out of time, and we barely touch on so many important areas of improvement and areas of problems. I think I'm just gonna, I wish in the future we're gonna have more chance. Rahmatullah, mashallah alik, you have a lot of great point to bring into
Thank you.
to the conversation. So the question is, what I mean, if we're gonna put it on all the scales of priority scales, like where do you think the first step should be? If we're gonna pick, let's say, okay, we talk about so many things, let's focus on the most important things, which is what?
Start connecting with our youth. Somebody said it takes a village to raise a child. Truer words have never been said. The village that is raising our child right now is the village they are finding online.
Oh
And we need
wow.
to bring them back. Parents, I'm telling you this up front right now. Lots of the parents out there give their kids devices for something to do, for them to fit in, for them to access what everybody else has. Don't do it. Talk to your kids. Get them involved in programs instead of them meeting strangers and whatnot inside online. Get them meeting them in real life. Get them meeting people from our community. Get programs where kids can have safe spaces to meet. When we used to run our events, we used to get volunteers from all aspects of life, religion, everything. And the reason they used to come out for the setup night, which was the hardest night, 6-10 hours of work of setting up our events, was because we made it fun and it was a safe space. Parents used to call me and be like, Rahamatullah, is my son still there? Yeah, he's still here. Okay, alhamdulillah, we know that they're in a safe space because we've been to your events and we've seen it. He can come home whenever he needs to come. Right? So you need to create that trust. And guys, I cannot stress enough, devices are raising our kids. The internet is raising our kids. It's no longer, and I'm not saying to sit down with the 40 hadith book and say, this is how we're going to raise our kids. No, interact with the youth. Instead of them wanting to become a TikTok star with 50 million views, have them want to become the hero of the neighborhood who, is known for shoveling snow and gets treats from the elderly neighbors because he did so. And they're young. They can be molded to be like this. And it's our responsibility to do that.
Oh, beautiful. Well said. Well said. Mashallah. Rahmatullah. I wish we have more time to weigh in, but I just want your word. We're gonna do this again.
Inshallah. Inshallah. I'm always ready.
We only scratched the surface, not even.
Sam, it was a pleasure. And if I said anything to offend anybody, I hope you'll forgive me. But at the end of the day, guys, we always have to renew our intention, and our intention in this life is for Allah and for our brothers and sisters in humanity and our brothers and sisters in faith. And if we don't have a community, we'll get nowhere. We'll get nowhere. Islam taught us about the importance about neighbors and our friends and our family. It taught us everything. We have the answer. It's just a question of how we're going to use it.
Well said. Thanks very much, Rahmatullah. Jazakallah kul khair.
Wa yakum. Take care, everybody. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum. Guys, I don't want to say anything after Rahmatullah, but let's put it that way. These are our problems, and it's not going to go away unless we solve it ourselves. So it's our duty collectively to ask the hard questions and to diagnose the situations properly and try to find solutions that's going to help us to advance and be more active members of this beautiful country of ours, Canada. So I want to thank you all for tuning in tonight, and also for all these people who were commenting and they didn't have a chance to show their comments or reply. So please forgive me for that. Thanks for everyone. Please share this video because I really think there's a lot of information we discussed tonight. So please share the videos and don't be too shy with the likes and stuff like that. Jazakumullah khair. Thank you very much for tuning in, and inshallah we'll see you with another one inshallah next Friday. Salam alaikum.